Hello, my Trigger Happy family. We are back again. Now, you know, these episodes keep getting juicier and juicier. And this week, we are going to be talking about relationship rules, right? Dating and marriage in the new millennia, because it is so different now. I'm pretty sure you all would agree. So we won't even debate that piece. But we have, listen, because we are bringing you some of the dopest folks ever. We have Enitan, and he is here with us. Not only did he just win a Gracie, so we are blessed by his presence, but he's also a best-selling author. When he speaks, you cannot help but listen because he shifts consciousness with not only his influence, but with his wisdom. Father and husband, we are so grateful to have you. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Yo, life is good. I'm thankful, I'm blessed, and I am grateful. How are y'all?
Good. So happy to have you, Mr. Bereola himself.
Come on now. You know what I mean? I didn't put my suit on, but you know what time it
is. That's okay. We still feel the essence, even
right.
Yeah.
We still feel the essence without it. No, I just want to, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time, especially on a day where I know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. So
it's all love. That's where I want to be.
We're always so let's not take up too much of your time. Let's dive right in so you can get back to your beautiful family in this wonderful Saturday. So we wanted you especially for this because we both have been able to kind of watch your journey with just speaking so eloquently about what it means to be a gentleman, what it means to have a certain woman in your life, and you finding that woman. And just like I, for one, have been a huge fan of just watching that journey for you. So just because I've seen you be single and then, you know, go into a relationship space, do you believe the rules are different in marriage and relationship nowadays compared to maybe pre-social media or even what you saw your parents do? Like, do you think things are different? And if so, what are those big differences?
I was just telling my homie yesterday on a phone call, like, aren't you glad to be married, bro? Because things are so, I don't even know like how to navigate or where to even begin the conversation because things are so different. I mean, just from the perspective of positioning where, you know, like maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that women are kind of like maintain a little bit more of the power dynamic, the push and pull power dynamic. It seems like there's an advantage. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's what I perceive. And I believe that from the conversations I have with my single friends. So just entering that space, the barriers to entry are higher because like you got to like really be quick to have a conversation to approach to. And even though there's easier ways to approach, right, through a DM, as opposed to what I had to do, actually walk up to a young lady, get a pen out of my pocket and write her phone number on my hand and hope that she'll give it. And hope that she'll even give it to me, right? Like muster up the courage to approach. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like now you literally just got to all this type of thing. But of course it's changed. It's going to continue to change. I mean, the one through line is that, you know, we both desire each other. Like that never changes. I think the conversation that changes is like how we go about that, how we go about communicating that. Because now you would think like, you know, women are straight. You know what I mean? We don't need you. Like, and this is a certain sector, right? This isn't all. There's a certain sector of the conversation which is, to me, at the forefront when it comes to popular culture that suggests that, like, I don't need you. You know, I actually saw a tweet yesterday that said something like that. Like, I make more. What do I need you for? Right? Like, I can provide for my. It was something along those lines. There were all these yes girls, and I was looking at the comments and who liked it. I was like, really? You like that? I'm not sure, you know what I mean? But I do believe that the rules are certainly different. I mean, I don't necessarily think, I think you should, you know, in a relationship, you should follow your own rules to determine what a relationship and a commitment looks like to you. Not everybody has that same ideology of what a commitment is.
True.
As long as two people are in agreement on what that looks like, it doesn't matter what the outside world believes. However, tradition, I think, you know, the path people normally follow in terms of relationship has definitely changed.
You just said something that it kind of threw me a little bit. You said that the woman said, because I make more, I don't need you.
Yeah.
That for me is just a wee bit problematic. Danielle, you can let me know how you feel about it. But the reason it's a little problematic is because so is the only reason or the only thing you think a man is good for is finances. Because if so, I feel like that might just be a very trauma-induced type of stance. Like it's been trauma. Because I mean, at least from my experience, listen, this is real life, okay? I had a baby crawling through, and for those who are listening on the podcast,
you saw my whole family just rolled in.
Hey, we talking about relationship rules, dating and marriage in the new millennia. And a part of this new millennia is we do a lot of things on Zoom and on StreamYard and everything else. So family happens. And one of the other interviews, we had one of my good girlfriends, her son was crawling in here trying to get his iPad. Yes, it happens. This is real life. Anybody who's trying to show this air of perfectionism, you're not real.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, family, thank you so much for letting us borrow him.
You see this blemish? Ain't nothing perfect. No, but you're right. Like
that's
provision, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
if you choose well, your partner will already, especially if it's a hetero male or was it cisgendered male, or even, a what is it, masculine presenting female, will want to provide for the person who is more feminine. That's just what it is. If your only focus is on how much money they make, sis, you're missing out on a whole list of other things. Because I've dated wealthy men and I've dated men who aren't as wealthy. And in my experience, and this is absolutely no shot or shame against wealthy men, because Lord knows I love money and money loves me. But that is like one of the things. Is he kind? Is he thoughtful? Does he make you feel supported? Do you feel at home with him? Is he emotionally available? Will he be available to the children that you guys produce? Is he generous? Does he care about legacy? Does he desire to leave something or to help those who can do nothing for him? Sis, it's the only thing
so much more. Yeah, like I not to do like celebrity gossip, but Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are getting a divorce, and she's like giving like a little interview with her mom about like, where she's at and how it all fell apart. And I think there was a question like, what would you want in your next relationship or your next marriage? And she's like, I've had the extravagant things. I've had everything someone can dream of as far as experiences and money. But she was just like, and it was so, I know how people view them, but it was just so human in the moment where she was like, I just want someone who likes the same shows as I do. It was so basic and so simple. She's like, I really just want the more simple things. Like she's had all that literally. Like I remember when he proposed, he rented out like a stadium. They got married in Versailles, like all the things you can think of. She has like 2 wedding rings, like all the material things. And she's just like, but can we just watch the same shows? Like,
come on, yo. At the end of the day, it's going to be you and that person up in the crib. It's not going to be any of that stuff. It's literally going to be like, do you like this human being, right? Like, can you all get through quarantine, a year of quarantine? Right? Like, can you just be locked in by yourself? And provision, like you said, is not just financial. We always tend to lean toward the financial for provision. Like there's so many other, like if you just provide financially, I mean, I had a friend whose father just provided. In my eyes, we thought that the dad was like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, like, yes, and diddly, like, whatever you need, son, just super, just like about his kids. But from my friend's perspective, he was like, my dad was always working. He was never there. I was like, well, he was working to make sure y'all had that big old house y'all lived in and all that stuff. And he was like, but I resent my dad. And I was like, what? Yeah. So it taught me like provision is not just like material or making there's so many basic. And that's kind of like what I write about, like the basic things that we neglect, the simple the simple ways of living and providing that can actually like monumentally change your trajectory and change your life and impact others in a beautiful way. Like selflessness is like service, and service could be a smile. You know what I mean? It could be like saying hi to a stranger, writing a thank you card, or showing somebody appreciation in a way that's like actually thoughtful. Like to just give somebody, just pay for a bag or pay for a trip. It could be cool or thoughtful, but to actually like give a gift where you really consider that person specifically, it's a different type of appreciation. You know what I mean? It's a different type of connection and understanding. So I've seen women, you know, I look at them and I'm like, they give their marriage announcement online, and I'm kind of just, you know, me, I'm somebody that's kind of empathetic, and I can feel and understand people without them saying anything to me. Like I can kind of like tap into you and figure out like what your needs are and desires and what's going on in your life without you saying a word to me. Right. Like it's a gift. And I would watch these women and they would marry off. And I was looking like, I don't know if I should tell them, but I already see in about 2 years, those pictures are going to disappear off the timeline. Right. I didn't have any, like, I don't ever have a reason as to say like why this is going to happen, but it always happens. They always get divorced or something always happens. And I'm like, I knew it, but I couldn't. Like, who am I to be like, pop your balloon and rain on your parade?
Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm going to take fault with that. I wish one of my friends or my sister or somebody would have told me, hey, I know you feel you love that person, but let's see what it is in a year. Because if somebody had positioned it to me like that, now I can't guarantee I would have listened because hindsight is 20/20, but at least somebody would have said something and would have warned me or told me like, hey sis, I love you, but I need you to take inventory and ask yourself, when you think about what your future looks like, when you think about what your most basic needs are of love, support, honoring, does this person fulfill that for you? If they do, hallelujah, I am there. Where do I send the wedding gift? But if you cannot honestly say that, do you really think that this is the person who you should tie yourself to for a lifetime through marriage?
Yeah, but I
have these conversations.
It's hard to just say that to somebody and they receive it, especially like you said, you don't know if you would have received it in that moment. Like, it's just not that simple, because you can say something like that and then that person completely remove you from their life because they feel like you're not supporting them. They feel like you're a hater. They feel like you're toxic to the situation. Like I know for me, when I got out of my last relationship, my friends, including you, Alicia, were like, girl, oh my God. Like, we were wondering why or what or who. We was wondering. We were trying to figure it out. We were trying to see what we saw. And I was like, why didn't you guys say, like, they never said that to me. Even when I would complain, they wouldn't say it. Like, you guys would never just be like, yo, we don't see it, sis. Like, this isn't it.
Because for me, you seemed more happy than you were sad.
Okay.
But you seemed more happy than you were sad, and no relationship is perfect. So I wasn't going to put the idea of perfectionism on you, knowing that nothing is perfect.
But I'm a happy person though. So it's like, it doesn't, my relationship, you know, it's hard. Like my relationship
is. You see what I'm saying? She's trying to blame you. You see where I stay out of it? You see where and the thing is, like, I'll have these conversations with the homies, but it's more or less like, you know, it's different. The approach is a lot different, but it's strange. Like somebody that's just like on my Facebook page, I don't really communicate with. I see, I'm talking about like people I don't even know. I can just, I'm tuned in a way I can't explain, but I just know.
Yeah.
And then it happens and I just be like, oh gosh, you know what I mean? Like I knew
somebody should have told
absolutely knew it.
Like,
but I mean, but at the same time, I truly believe that you are where you're supposed to be at all times. So even when we go through things that we go through, like there's so much gold and treasure, and you'll never be able to get to where you're going without being where you are and appreciating life. You know what I mean? Like so even though we can look back at these things in retrospect and say to ourselves, oh, I wish somebody like, no, you were supposed to. And I don't want to like say somebody should be in this toxic or negative, or you can overstay your welcome, but you're always where you're supposed to be.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. And I even said it on a previous episode. I told my ex-husband, thank you, because I never would have arrived at this place without going down that route with you. Now, will I choose it again? Fuck no. And I mean that with all disrespect.
But why? But why do you think, just kind of piggybacking off that, it's like perfect for the next question. Why do you think some, specifically women, end up in situationships and toxic relationships when really what they're craving is deep commitment and connection with someone? Because sometimes it's like, yeah, I learned from it, but why do I keep having to learn from it?
Because it's something, you know what I mean? Like something is better than nothing in a lot of instances to people, right? Like to be alone, to be in solitude, as you learn through quarantine, like people despise a lot of times themselves. And it's not just them, it's like, it's the trauma that's built up that's in front of them. And then they put the mask in front of that, so they can't even see what's what. So you put somebody by themselves and all of that is there. So they're always trying to escape it. And when you try to escape and not heal from trauma, it's going to present itself in every other scenario. So if you try to run from it in a relationship, it's going to show up in your career. You try to run from it in your career, it's going to show up with your children. It's always going to present itself. You can't run from self, because that's essentially what it is. A relationship reflects who you are. Right? So when you just continue to see yourself, if you don't deal with that, you're always going to run into this cycle of the same ish. So you keep on dating the same type of dude, and he's like, why do I keep... I hate to say it, but if I point one finger at you, I got three pointing back at me. It's not to say like you're at fault, or it's just to say like at some point in life, you got to accept responsibility for the 0 to 30 plus years you've lived, or 0 to 21 or 0. Like there's all this stuff that you were taught, that you learned, that life has presented to you, that you've accepted as truth. And that could be your trauma, or whatever it is that you've tucked deep in, and you just kind of like showing up with that. Right. So until you like get to a place where you can deal with that, it's always going to present itself.
Listen, that word, that, I mean, we technically could have the benediction now and pass the collection plate. But you just said something super powerful, because it's like, no matter where you go, there you are. If you don't,
you can never escape that.
You cannot. And I think that honestly was the biggest thing that I got out of quarantine. I grew so much personally.
I can tell.
Even the way in which I love my daughter, the consistent and constant like healing of traumas, the way I now love and approach myself, like that sitting down long enough in quarantine to where you going, sis? You got these walls. And
you're one of those people. I see through people, you know what I mean? So you left a message at one point on your IG, and I was thankful that you left it. You know, it was like a transparent message, and I was like, that's good, because you know, like I see people. It's just like I just see them, right? And it's always beautiful when people see themselves as well, and they come to that confrontation, and they're willing to confront themselves.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, so this trajectory you're on, like, I'm thankful. And I literally, I see people. So I saw, like, you didn't have to say anything. I already knew, like, the sentiments that you shared, and how I could tell. I just know. I can't explain it, but so I'm glad that, you know, I'm glad for the solitude. I'm glad for the time that people had to spend because I mean, I took a quarantine like 4 years before Corona on my like a self-imposed. I did it to myself. I knew I needed to just like, things were about to get even bigger. I knew I just needed to like, take a year off and really just.
Yeah, I did the same. The year before, like that period before, like I did my own little quarantine. I did my own little, just like, all right, I need to figure this out. Like I need to sit with myself. I need to remove myself. I need to just like take some time. And for me, quarantine was one of the best times of my life, to like the one that everyone had to experience. For me was such a great time. Like I think about it so fondly, and I know not to take away from anybody's negative experiences and all the horrible, tragic things that happen, but I definitely want to put out into the atmosphere that there were people that had really great times and connected deeper. I was able to take my relationship to a whole nother level that I honestly don't think would have happened without quarantine. You know, like it ended up being such a beautiful experience because we were both like, let's sit in this. Let's see what this is. Let's see what's for real. and it ended up being so beautiful. And I think sometimes, just like you said, when we have to sit with ourselves, and I think what really will help with people that end up in those cycles is just being really honest with yourself and having those really uncomfortable conversations with yourself that make you cringe. And it's like, am I attracting fuckboys because I am a fuck girl? Like, am I an asshole? Like, we don't have those conversations with ourselves, especially women. We don't tend to just kind of be raw and honest with ourselves. We're always looking for validation from someone else. But how often do you sit down and you're just like, hey, I'm attracting this kind of guy, but who am I? And why does that person feel like they're worthy to even be in my presence?
You said it. I ain't say
it. It's kind of like a who gonna tell her? For so
there needs
many.
to be a podcast or something. Who gonna tell her? There needs to be a whole movement. Like, yo, who's gonna tell her? I'm gonna make some t-shirts.
Something like who gonna be the person? And it's crazy because a lot of, especially for women, and I can't speak for men because I'm not a man. So this is where your valued perspective comes in. But for a lot of women, we make many decisions out of fear. Fear that what we require we'll never get. So we always keep lowering the bar until there's no more bar. It's just on the floor and we're willing to.
And that's where we settled. That's the settling part, where it's on the floor.
Like
that's where dust settles on the floor.
So a lot of us, we make these major declarations and decisions out of fear. Like I used to say, I never want to have another kid. Kids are terrible. They're this, that, and the third. I didn't really believe kids were terrible. I didn't really not want to have another kid, but I was so terrified of trusting someone again and enough to be willing to bring forth another spirit into the universe that I was like, oh no, this ain't it. And it was so steeped in fear and in trauma that I said, oh, I just don't want it. And for many women, they take that same fear that their standards, their requirements, their desires won't be met. So they attach that and say, oh, well, marriage is just a piece of paper. It's not that serious. It's whatever. Oh, it's not that deep. What's that meme? Those who know or people who understand it don't got to be explained. Something, no disrespect to whoever created it, but side eye. So what do you feel? Do you feel as though the institution of marriage is just a piece of paper? For me, I'm like, well, it's a piece of paper that holds a lot of weight, because if it now comes to the point to where it's time for him to go to the next realm, and you don't have that little piece of paper, all of the work that you've put in, unless they have something written out.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, the law is just a piece of paper, right? Constitution is just a piece of paper. Contracts you sign that'll land your ass in jail is just a piece of paper.
Just a piece of paper.
You could get sued from a piece of paper. You could get, served papers from a piece of paper. Paper, right? But it's not about the papers.
Wow.
It's beyond that, right? So when people kind of try to trivialize it, money is just a piece of paper.
And
if you want to talk about crypto, money is nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's like air. It's technology, right?
Wow.
So, we tend to frame things how we want to serve our benefit.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's this inconsistent relationship that we have. And I think people say things like that and they exude things like that a lot of times, like you said, out of fear, because typically people who say those type of things, there's a central wound. There's something there that was that needs to be recalibrated or reconsidered. A lot of times a guy will say it the same way a woman will say it out of fear, because a guy was hurt, or his dad was hurt, or his brother, or his best friend was hurt or something by a woman. And they don't value the relationship. They don't value marriage in that way because they saw how marriage is presented to them. So they think that that's what it is. And that's what it could be. Right? Life happens, right? But you can't look at every situation and say, oh, I don't want that because this is what it is, right? you can take anything and draw a negative association with it, right? But there's another side to it, and you have to be willing to submit and commit and do the work and like really understand what a marriage is. And it's actually a beautiful contract that, you know, guarantees, you know, like if my lung goes, my wife got my lung. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's this partnership that's like solidified on paper, so that there is an understanding that whole, if you got what's understood doesn't need to be, well, how can I understand something if you don't explain it? Like, what are we saying? Like, what are we saying? Like, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, and if y'all split, or if like whatever, it's a relationship in the same way that a business is a contractual agreement, and there are certain terms and agreements that both parties sign off on, and that's understood. But if you just get into like a contract, you know, you're an artist and you're just like, yeah, whatever, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get this money. Let's get on. I'm trying to tour. And then like, it's time to recoup, and you sold 5 million albums and you got $500. Well, what's understood doesn't need to be explained, right?
Right. It's like that little piece of paper. You maybe might have should have read that.
And you know, I feel like
it ain't got to be explained. So we're cool.
And I feel like that's more of like a modern millennial. What's the generation after it's called? Z, whatever.
Z.
Gen Z. I feel like it's very like a more modern way of thinking. And I also hear this too, along with just a piece of paper, that people will say that marriages back in the day lasted more so out of necessity. Because, you know, if a woman got divorced, she probably couldn't take care of her family because she didn't have an education. She didn't have a job. She didn't work. She would be like a pariah in the society anyways. You know, men wouldn't really be seen. They wouldn't really be like an esteemed gentleman if he didn't have a wife and a family. He would feel like, you know, he's not really doing anything. So do you feel like it's because of that mentality? Like, do you feel like marriages were more out of necessity, so they lasted longer and they were more like of a priority?
Yeah, I mean, like the tradition and the history of things a lot of times can be offensive to people, the way things were birthed, right? Like, I mean, think about our relationship with America, how we got here, right? Like, but do we rest on that alone, or do we make the best of the situation? Do we take the N word and like make it our own? Do some women take the B word and like switch it up and make it a thing, right? Like make it to best serve them. So, I mean, I think we've taken marriage now. Look at marriage as it's a covenant, you know, it's a covenant under God between two people, and it's bigger than any individual person. Like, my wife is beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Thank God for that. You know what I mean? We kick it. We love each other. We could watch the same TV shows and go on trips and just vibe and do nothing and love all that. Enjoy food. Cool. You know, talk about things. Cool. Have dope kids. And yeah, that's great. But guess what? There's something much greater to our union than any of that. It's more than her being beautiful and we post pictures. That's so minimal and trivializing what we actually offer. And the fact that, like, God made her a certain type of way so that I could like, oh yeah, that's the one I want. Like, there's something to our relationship that is beyond, like, so far beyond us, and it's like really rooted in service and contribution to like y'all, to like you know, in service to the community, to the people, to like the trajectory of where this world is going. Like, we're placed here together. And designed together on purpose with a mission that is greater than like, look at us, we're cute. Like, it's much bigger than that, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't kind of like receive that, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're kind of just like in this other world of like social media and like, you know, how things look and how things appear and presentation, and I'm lonely, so I want this, or like if it's like this shallow reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are y'all going to sustain? Our foundation is different. Like, we can withstand the storm. You know what I mean? Because our foundation is different. So, you know, like, however you're building, you know, and however you're defining marriage or relationships, I think a lot of times people say that to kind of like get their way too. You know, like, if there are no rules written, then that means I can kind of do what I want to do, and there's no written rule. I didn't say what's understood doesn't need to be explained, right? Like, it allows somebody to kind of get away with whatever, in those type of statements, and you end up a girlfriend for 17 years.
And
and then after that, without the foundation, you could just be like, all you got to do is send a text like, yeah, I'm done, and there goes your 17 years. There's no contract. There's nothing to bind it. You can't just leave a marriage. Like you got to like actually go through process. Yeah. Like it's a process. You could leave a relationship like that after 22 years.
Man,
Good luck. Enjoy yourselves out there.
So listen, there was so much in what you just said. And I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. I may have to remind you of the second part, but you said that you believe that marriage is, between two people, a covenant under God. There's a rise in polyamorous relationships. Yeah. And with the rise in polyamorous relationships where, some humans believe that monogamy, that humans just were not meant to be monogamous. Honestly, it is something that I have been, mulling over, just trying to decide, okay, what does it look like for me? Does that work? How does it, just all the things. So do you think that polyamory should be an option for those who believe they have trouble with committing to one human, or do you think like it's a cop-out? So that's like question number 1. And then question number 2, I want to help for our followers shoot, and myself. Yes, I had to repeat that a couple of times so I could be sure, like, okay, I'm asking the right question. What do you feel in terms of timeline? Because you said being a girlfriend for 17 years. I know someone who that applies, a couple of people actually who that applies to, where they've literally been in a relationship to where it's at this point, maybe over 20 some odd years as a girlfriend. It's no disrespect to their position or what they're doing, but what should be the cutoff? Because, I like clearly define things a little bit when we can. So what should be the cutoff? So question number 1 is around polyamory. And then when do you say like, okay, what I truly want is marriage, and this is, because you can't force anyone to marry you or anything like that, and you shouldn't. But what's like a healthy time frame?
I mean, a relationship is whatever you say it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the beauty of this life. I could say that this hat is water. And if I believe that this is water and this is a red hat, then that's just what it is. And in the same breath, I'm being kind of silly because that's discounting people who actually practice polyamory. And I think that, again, like, you kind of do what's suited for you. And I've seen that work for people, and I've seen people try it, and it doesn't fly. You know what I mean? My grandfather, my dad's Nigerian. My grandfather was, he had many wives. You know what I mean? And from our perspective, that definitely, like, we got cousins and I don't even know, and all, like, I don't know what there's some sort of like cultural purpose, I'm sure, in it, but for us, like, I don't know the benefit, right? Like, from that standpoint, like, it's split the family. We're very, very family oriented and communal. I'm sure there's traditional cultural reasons for it, but I don't get in people's mess. I mean, not their mess, but I don't get in people's business in that way. Because if it works, who am I to be like, this is my belief and this is yours? If that's how it flies, and that's cool. I don't particularly see as somebody that used to be like a womanizer and date around and just have a whole bunch of situations going on. I only had like 3 girlfriends growing up, but I had a lot of like
situations,
way more than the average like guys like a lot of situations,
a lot of things that didn't need another things that were understood but that didn't need to be explained. A lot of those. No, but I mean, I was always honest about stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it was what it was. I was single, but and I was very, committed to staying that way.
Committed to staying.
But I played, and even when I was in relationships, I had cheating situations, all kinds of stuff. But I don't see how you can like have space for both. You know what I mean? I don't. That's just me. Maybe I've trained my mind and my body and my spirit into believing this, into moving in the way that I want to move in life. And I love the discipline of it personally, because it spills into other areas of my life.
Yeah.
Career, business, health. It just kind of, it keeps me knowing that I can, but I choose not to is powerful for me.
Ooh, yes.
It's like a superpower. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I believe Will Smith also, I've heard him say something very similar, that he was very determined to get married young, and just kind of do that because he felt like it freed him up to really explore his other potential and to like really take him to the next level, because he wasn't out here like trying to find this girl and putting his energy there. He felt like he could use his energy more effectively if he had already taken care of that. And then when he said he found, his first marriage didn't work out, he got married to Jada. And he said that he just felt like if he didn't have that he really wouldn't be who he was, because he would be putting his energy in a place that wouldn't give him the payoff that he was looking for, which was greatness, obviously. So that's that's dope. I know that he says that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been married younger than I got married, because it wouldn't have worked. You know what I mean? Like, I know myself. So I got married at the right time, right? But as far as the timing of it, that was a good transition. It was a good transition. As far as the timing, like, again, a man knows when, like, he's prepared to take things he desires to take things to the next level, because like he knows when, like, oh, wait a minute, this is like, I want this, I want more of this, right? There's a lot that is unsettled a lot of times within him, and a lot of the unsettling discourse that's happening internally is a result of a lot of external information, right? Like, you got to have all your ish together. You got to have 2.6 million in the bank in savings and cash that's liquid, right? You got to have like, it's all these like false, because again, we don't know what it looks like because we didn't have it modeled to us properly. So we think that in order to be prepared for marriage, it's like you damn near got to be perfect as a man. You got to have it all out your system. You got to have there's all these requirements that aren't necessarily true. There are some things that do hold true, but a lot of that is noise. And I believe that. I used to believe that, and I got to have my ish together. I got to have, like, you do have to have your ish together, but what does that mean? Right? I used to think I had to have a certain amount. I used to think that I had to have this type of gig. I used to think that I had to have this, like, all of these checklists, right? Yeah. And by the time I actually got to that point, it was with her. And she taught me that, you don't have to have your ish together by yourself. We can build this thing together. You know what I'm saying? Collectively. Yes. And you exponentially speed up the process, because, like, that puts a battery in your back when you get married. It's a different type of thing, especially if you have kids. So, a timeline, like, we gave each other cards that said I love you at like 6 months or something like that. I think about like 5-6 months, I was looking at her like, like, this is different. Like, I definitely want to, like, I eventually want to marry you, but I'm not, this is the conversations I have with myself, not with her, but I'm nowhere near like ready. So I was in a relationship for 5 years with her, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship. And in my mind, in my spirit, I was like, anything after 5 years, you're kind of, is that true? No, not necessarily, because a marriage is the most important, like one of the top 3 most important decisions you can make in life.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're going to have kids, who you're going to fall on your face and worship, if anyone, and whether or not you're going to get married. Those are like top 3 life decisions. You know what I mean? And however long it takes somebody to kind of come to that. Now, the point is, you have to participate in that. You can't just rest on your laurels and just be on some, like, nah, you know what I'm saying? This is what it is. This is where I am. That you actually have to participate by having the information and going through the journey that, like, put you in position to be able to get on your knees and ask somebody to marry you. You can't just, like, sit back and be on some, this is who I am. It is what it is. God knows my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, only God can judge me. Like, you gotta, like, you have to actually work toward being the person that you envision yourself to be. You can't just sit and that's just gonna happen. You gotta, like, so there's work that's involved, and it's personal work. And for me, it was me being vulnerable enough to have this conversation with my girlfriend at the time, to let her know how I felt about it, and her to have the wherewithal, the intellect, and the patience to tell me, like, what? Like, nah, like, we could do this thing together.
Yeah.
You don't have to be this perfect. It ain't got to be perfect. Like I see you, I know exactly who you are, and I love you still. And that's all a man wants to hear.
So it sounds
like this.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying like it's based on a time that works for the two people that are in the union together, like whatever time. But is there a time that's like, all right?
I mean, come on, yo. Like after, like if you, and there's always a contingency. Let me preface it by saying that.
Yes.
Because nothing's just on this strict timeline. But after 5 years, if you can't figure out, you know what I mean? Like go get some therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like go get in a habit of like improving yourself. If you don't see results, or you can say to yourself like, okay, I had to unlearn things. I had to rewire my mind and shift my spirit to like really understand that I am in position to be married. I have done the work to better myself. And for a woman that's just kind of like waiting along and being strung along and just like in it, she's not really, she's gestured toward, I want to get married, and they've had a little conversation, but she's just kind of in it. And then she's just like floating, and it's like 3 years and 4 years, and there's no progress. You can't measure any progress. And it's just like, I mean, that's a different type of story. And you may want to reapproach the conversation and start to set a boundary and then measure the progress. And start create an exit plan if you can't measure progress. If you're exactly where you were or backward in year 3, 4, 5, like,
that's
at that point, you got to point that finger back at yourself.
Yeah, that whole measuring progress. I think that actually is the best answer to my question in terms of timeline.
Yeah.
Because you can't look at someone else and say, oh, well, he met her and they were married in 6 months, and that's apples to oranges. Like, that's not the same thing. But with what you said, where it's having a conversation, we're grown. Like, you should be able to have a conversation with the person who you say you want to spend the rest of your life with around what your desires, like, what's your timeline? What is that looking like? I know with my partner, we had a discussion around kids. And he gave me his timeline, and I was very honest. And I said, unfortunately, that timeline doesn't work for me. Is this something we can have a discussion around, or is this your hard fastened, this is what it is for you? And he was just like, no, like, I have a partner, so we can absolutely discuss it. And so I was like, okay, great. This is what I'm thinking. How does this make you feel? And then there was a continuation of the conversation from there. But I love what you said around, is there progress? And it can't be a combo that you've only had in your head with yourself, because that's not fair. But having it with the person who you're saying you want to marry, and just being clear on what is your time frame too for what your requirements are. Because, and again, I'm not a man, but all the men in my life have told me a man is clear on if he wants to marry you, number one.
Yes.
Like, he's clear on that. Like, there's no need to get confused. Yes. Well, I don't know. If you don't know, then it's probably a no.
No, it is a no. Indecision is a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always, and I'm always preaching this about, because I have such great, and I'm so grateful for it, but I have really great relationships with men. I always have. Growing up, I had great relationships with my cousins and my fathers, because I feel like I was fathered by so many men, and my uncles just had really great conversations with me that were just really raw and honest. And one thing that they would say consistently across the board that always stuck with me, and I probably say it on every podcast episode we have, because I want women to stop trying to think we can change men, was that there's nothing.
Change your mind. You can't change a man, though.
No, you cannot make a man like you. Like, once he makes up his mind, first of all, they would say, a man knows what his intentions are with you within about 5 minutes of interacting. Just like that.
5 seconds.
Right. He knows if you're gonna be the side chick. He knows if he's gonna just hit it and quit it. He knows if you have wifey, like, just like how you knew with your now wife, like, it may not be today, but that's my intention. Y'all know that day one. We like to think that no matter what you say to us, like, oh, we'll meet a guy and he'll be like, I'm not really looking for something serious. And then I'm like, well, because I am the greatest thing that he has ever met, I'm going to change his mind. And he's going to realize how amazing I am. And he's going to decide that he wants more.
He might change your menstrual cycle, but he ain't gonna change his mind. You know what I'm saying? You may end up with a situation, you know what I'm talking about? But you know what I mean? Like I don't understand.
It doesn't work like that.
You can like inspire somebody to change, but know that even God like gives us free will. And like, you know, we can only do like what we decide to do. You know, like, and we always decide what we do. It's always on us. Nobody can. It can be influenced, but the ultimate decision always lies on us. So
that's a word.
100%. You just gotta shake that mentality, yo. You just gotta shake it. You know what I mean? Like, be received. Be received. Don't be out here trying to get give yourself. Always be received. Always be in situations, relationships, whether they're platonic or they're romantic or their business. Like, be received.
Yeah.
Like, don't just you know what I mean? Don't just be trying to, come on, take me, please. Like, nah, like allow people to receive you.
What are some of the, because you mentioned that, you know, you thought there were all these things that you needed before you were eligible to be married or to do those things. But then you said that there are a couple things that do need to be in place. I want to know more so for women. What are some things that you maybe see in the community of women, specifically maybe if you want to target to Black women, because we are the most unmarried population in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some things that you see that maybe we can shift to kind of help us get to those spaces of marriage and prioritizing marriage again as the Black community?
Oh, yo, I mean, I went on this tour for women only, speaking to like rooms full of women. You know,
so good, by the way.
Traveling cities, and she was
there. We need to hear it from the horse's mouth. Like, we need to hear it from the men, because we are just telling each other a bunch of men.
That was the plan in 2020, but of course 2020 happened. It was going to be rooms full of women, then men. Me, Kenny Burns, Steve Canal, and we're just going to include different people. Then we're eventually going to get men and women in the same room, because when you have us in the same room together, it's just a bunch of people trying to get off their points. And all the women say something. One woman says something, the woman like, yes, girl. And then the guy says something like, yeah. So it's this combative conversation because they never have the capacity and the space to be able to speak. So when they do, they're just trying to get out all their stuff and no one's meeting. We have to both be, not just women. We have to both be two Black women, Black men, women. We need to be willing. That's like, I think the willingness is the most important component, because there's a lot of conversation and jargon about I wrote a whole book called Gentlewoman, Empowering Women. And sometimes women and men can get drunk off of empowerment and utilize that as a weapon, you know, like really standing on their square and standing on their pedestal that they've been put on, and kind of pointing down and being like, you know, when people get in powerful positions, sometimes they abuse it. And that kind of it speaks to what I said, how the tables have turned, and when men believe that, whether this is true or not, I think men are starting to believe women have the upper hand, and they're reacting to that, right? And women have an upper hand to a lot of men, and a lot of times emasculates and makes a man feel like he's not needed. And when the conversation of a woman is saying I don't need you, I mean, I want you, but I don't need you, now that's a true statement, isn't it? But I think in the same way,
it's a very true statement.
In the same way, it's tricky because I feel like we all need each other. I feel like we all need each other to survive.
Like, humanity no longer survives if
exactly right.
Male and female. So I don't agree. We do all need each other.
Exactly right. It's how you frame that, right? It's you want to give credence and credit to that statement when a woman suggests it, because when they say that, I think they're saying is you think I need you to just even be, to breathe, to make money, to have a life.
I think it's context.
Go from 0 to 80 years old and live happily and get what I came for in life and die. No, but that's what you were created for.
Yeah, we all,
you know what I'm saying? We're created for relationship, and not just again romantic. We're created. I need you. You need it's this symbiotic thing that we're all here. We all need each other. Black, all of that. We need each other, right? So there's that part. That's an overarching, larger conversation. But The willingness is the most important element to me, because it requires humility. In order to be humble, like, that means you have your ish together as a woman. You've gone to the conferences, you've gone to the retreats, you've gone to the healing, you've gone to the therapy, you've read the books. You're quality. You were wifeable. You were marriageable. Meanwhile, the man he's just feels like he's not, doesn't match up. Like, you have the upper hand. Like, I'm just kind of like falling in the background. I'm not needed. I'm not necessary. Mm-hmm. So you have two people coming to the table like that, there's going to be static. It's going to be smoke. It's going to be conflict. Mm-hmm. But if somebody has the willingness to listen, right? Like, this is how a man feels, right? This is how he feels. Don't disregard it. Just receive it. Don't come back. Okay, that may not be what I meant, right? But I understand how you feel. Like, have these conversations. You have to be willing. Otherwise, the woman's just going to keep getting more, adding more to her superpowers, right? Like, she's going to keep on leveling up, and the man's just going to keep on watching her and feeling smaller and smaller and smaller. It may not be true, but it's just how it's going to feel. Now, how does that man approach this woman? I got my degrees. I got all this. How come I'm not married? You got to be willing. You got to be humble. And that doesn't, a lot of times you don't want to hear that. So much at work here and at play that we don't pay attention to, that we just go at each other. It's a larger conversation. We have to like meddle through the mud in the same way we had to get through 2020 and sit in that solitude and all that. We need to get to a place where we're willing to communicate to each other and hear each other and listen to each other. And for a woman who is presenting as a woman who has gone through therapy, who's gone on the trips, who's read the books, who's listened to the podcast, who's done the work, who's gone through the work 12 times, who is showing up as full self, who's like, I'm here in all like glory and all flaws, and I love myself. And a man is just sitting back and watching her on this trajectory and on this journey and not putting in the same effort because he's starting to feel minimalized. He's starting to feel smaller, whatever his reasons. You can't just tell a man to get off his ass and get it together. And no, there's reasons as to why he may feel, and you have to be willing to be humble enough to hear those reasons and have those conversations, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be this constant conflict. And how do you tell a woman who has gone through the difficult work of becoming herself and falling in love with that person to then come back down to listen to some guy explain to you his woes of why he's not all the way together to present himself to you fully? And that takes humility. That takes humanity. That takes like you actually being who you claim to be, right? Like the soul and the core of you is so nurturing and so loving. And sometimes that part of you gets shielded because it's unprotected, it's left unprotected, and it gets taken advantage of. And through the course of life, you realize that like, oh, showing this part of me is like, it's like a weakness. I can't just reveal this. I can't just give this to anybody, right? I can't lead with this. And you should guard your heart, but you always have to be willing to be humble enough to listen and to hear people, like listen for understanding and to adjust. And it's hard, again, to ask somebody that's up here to adjust. Like, I'm already home already. Like, what do I need you for? Like, that's not the narrative. That's only going to make us feel like that. It's going to keep on shrinking us, right? And you're like, well, you're a man. Y'all had it. That's not the conversation. If you really want what you say you want, like, unfortunately, it might require a little bit of nurturing. No, you're not our mothers, right? And we're not asking you to be, but it might require you to actually be who you are.
So what is that look like? So in terms of, and I don't want to cut you off, so go ahead and then I'll tell you what my comment or question was.
No, you said, what does it look like?
Yeah, so like, what does that look like? Because as a woman who is doing the work, for me personally, what it looks like is me suggesting a book that I know will help the both of us grow and ask, can we read it together? And can we talk through the chapters and the steps to see how we can apply some of the principles? Not all, because it's like a buffet, take what you need and leave what you don't.
Right.
but how can we do this together? So for me, that's what it looks like. But there still has to be, in my opinion, you have to be just like even the fair requires it. You have to be this tall to ride this ride. You can't even, you can't see patients until you've gone through this amount of hours of the pre-work. Like there still, for me, always has to be a standard. So there has to be a minimum, viable product.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking too. Like, how do we, if we are doing that work and we're vibing there, and how do we do what you're asking without lowering our standards and settling?
Yeah. It's collective, right? Like we have to take, as men, we have to take our own responsibility and initiative, right? And there is just now space opening up, right? Like men are getting together in groups. Men are going on retreats. Men are like in therapy, right? This is a new thing. There's a shift happening where men are finally understanding, like, yo, I don't have my stuff together. Like I do have trauma. Like there is a lot of stuff in the way that's preventing me from showing up as my full self. Like y'all have been doing for so long. So there's a shift, right? But it's just like support is necessary, right? And for those who are unwilling who have zero patience, and understandably so, because they've had patience and they keep on getting trampled on, right? They keep on getting but what is this life? Like, what is your faith? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is love, right? Like love is loving. It's not just like love, it's not just like this, this beautiful feeling. It's patient, it's kind, it's forgiving. It keeps no record of wrongdoing. It's this consistent, overpowering, ever-present, right, thing that disarms, right, at all times. Like love can't be present and anything else is present. Love is all consuming. Eventually it's gonna just get in there and creep in and just overtake, right?
Yeah.
But it requires, like, love travels through us. We have to be willing to surrender and submit to that. Is that easy? Hell no, it's not even easy in a relationship, in a marriage, with your kids, with your best friend. No, it's not easy. But like, if you were saying you are who you are, like, you have to be willing to show up as that and to support, right? Does that mean like you're dumb and you're ignorant and you let somebody walk? No, there's a fine line. Yeah. There's like a fine line you have to find. You can love from a distance. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can support from like a distance, and like, yeah, we're not together anymore. Like, you need to go off and figure it out. But I think what helps is I understand, like, knowing that the field is just a little bit uneven, like knowing that, Black men have gone through so much that we don't discuss. We don't wear it on our sleeves, but we carry so much that it's very safe to assume that anytime you encounter a Black man, he's carrying a lot. So how you approach that, how you respond to that, what you say, what you're posting on, like, your narrative, your sentiment, it's gonna affect that. You're gonna meet that until a man's gone through that work, right? So it's not your responsibility to raise, to heal, to even help, right, a man. But I think it is your responsibility to love, period. And that doesn't mean that you got to love this person in a relationship. That doesn't mean, that means, like you said, just in the book. Yeah. That means, like, and you don't even have to, like, put forth effort to do anything, but again, to understand, to, like, at very basic, when you step outside, when you wake up, know that there's a lot of residue on us. So handle with care. even though we may, like, present a certain way and whatever, handle with care. I'm telling you, as a Black man, I don't care how a man presents. I don't care how many tattoos he has on his face. I don't care how many people he shot. I don't care, like, what he's been through in his life experience. Handle with care, because men are way more sensitive than y'all are. We just don't present it in the way that's, like, that's natural. We present it with anger. We present it with shutting down. We present it with F that B. We present it with, like, MOB, money over B. You know what I'm saying? Like, all this stupid stuff that's not what we actually want.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not even what we desire, but we're broken. So we show up that way. So when you deal with that, if you don't handle with care, it's just going to consistently be this thing. So what do you want? Do you want to be, like, degreed up with your crown on by yourself? Or do you want relationship? And that doesn't mean settling. It means loving.
Oh, okay.
You got to figure out what that love looks like to you. You got to figure out what the patience and all that, how you handle that, right?
Yeah.
And when it makes sense, right? Like, you're not going to be patient on your job waiting for a promotion if you've been there 10 years and doing all the work, and your boss ain't paying you no attention. You're like, man, I'm out of here. This
Right.
job over here is trying to recruit me right now.
Yeah.
But if if you can measure progress, if you like, look, man, you're trying to erase how many years of
brokenness.
We were brought here and y'all were raped. You know what I'm saying? Our wives were raped by white slave masters. Like, there's all this.
Our men were raped by white slave masters.
There's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
We're just over here looking on Instagram like, I got my F, I don't need no. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. And I feel like that mentality is so destructive within the Black community, because there's literally, I believe, an agenda to destroy the Black family in so many different ways.
Of course.
So it affects us disproportionately, like the independent woman, the boss bitch, that mentality, as useful as it can be in some arenas, in the relationship arena, it's just literally destroyed us. And even going all the way back, a lot of people don't know that the Black woman has always been used to emasculate the Black man by the master. Like, they would literally make the Black woman feel more empowered to keep the other slaves in check. Like, I mean, if anyone's ever read the Jim Crow letters and things like that, like, it's really eye-opening as to how it still happens today without us even realizing it, and that we're so programmed now that we just do it. So I really appreciate you kind of breaking that down, because I think it feels sometimes that we're settling and we're just taking on so much. But I love the idea of measuring progress and using love and leading with love, but still having those standards and those guidelines. I think that's awesome. I didn't even ever think about it like that. So I need
just all, like, before you, there's always a natural reaction, right? There's always like a part of us that's like, as soon as something happens, it's this natural.
You're critical.
Right? Like, if somebody cut you off, there's this immediate thing, this fleshly, like, always loving is like pausing.
Yeah.
Like, you consider, like, before you, because you got to understand what's coming at you. Like, when that thing comes at you, you understand what that is.
Yeah. If
you want to, I don't even know if you want to take it spiritual, but you got to understand that, like, a lot of times what you're seeing, it ain't what it is. If you were to get to the core of a man or the core of a human in general, it's just pure love. It's pure, and it wants to give and serve and receive, but there's so much in the way.
Yeah.
So if you combat that with, I don't need you, if that's the energy, how do you think we're going to respond?
It's okay, bet. That's the response. Okay, bet. And
always pause.
Yeah, I really, really like that, because the crazy thing is I don't care who you are, what your upbringing is, the baseline, every single person wants to go back to love. Every single person. We are spiritual beings who were literally crafted and created out of a desire to love. That is why we were all created and crafted. We all desire to get back to it. Yeah. But yes, ego comes in, noise comes in, hurt comes in. And so you build up all these barriers around yourself, especially your spirit man, because your heart to me isn't your spirit. Your heart, yes, love emanates from it, but your spirit is something that's different. That's your core. And we get so far away from that because we then put rabbit pit bulls and fences around our core. So our heart can't really do what it's supposed to do, because it has strength from our core, from our spirit man. So yeah, I completely get the pause first. Just pause. And being willing to, and it's something too that I'm now recognizing, because I've never been in I've never experienced the depth of honesty and of openness that I'm in currently. Just I've never known, and he said the same thing. He's like, this is different, but the willingness to allow him to be vulnerable, to say, hey, yesterday I did something that I've never done in my adult life, and this is how it hurt me. or this is what it was. And for me to be like, you bitch, like, but to be open to say, hey, I'm really sorry about that experience. What if we just do this instead? How does this look like? What does this look?
You said it. Leading, being willing to complete the sentence, being willing to lead with your spirit in love, to me is the answer. Like, if that, to me, that's kind of just, that answers everything that we talked about in this whole journey.
I was just thinking that. Yeah,
because, that's like, it requires to do that requires like there's you always have to come back to self. That pause makes you like, before you project anything or say anything, or even if it's deserving, before you do any of that, you always got to come right here. Like, don't lead with my flesh. Let me lead with my spirit. Right. And again, like, it's not about keeping score, and it's certainly not about being stupid and being dumb, because ride or die women, a lot of ride or die women are in the grave. They're dead. A lot of ride or die women die.
Yes.
But so I'm not saying like, loyalty is, sometimes disloyalty is self-care, honestly. Because the way people,
that goes back to what you said about measuring progress and having that, having a barometer of some kind as to like what we're looking for and what we should be expecting as time goes on. So I think by having that, you make sure that the balance comes in, where you're not just like,
if you don't love self, if you love yourself, you ain't gonna deal. You're naturally just not gonna deal with certain type of issues.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you're gonna be on some like rah, but you love yourself. So why would you wouldn't treat yourself like that? So why would you let somebody?
You won't tolerate it anyway.
Like, So there's that. Do you love yourself? Okay, let's start there. And then now, can you love other people?
Yeah. That just puts,
those are two basic little. Those are little basic things that can help navigate everything we talked about.
Okay. And it really just boils down to accountability. Like that, everything that you said, the main thing I got from that was just like, it's my responsibility to do, like, this is all on me. Like, I can't sit and look outside of myself and hope that I find the perfect man or any of those things. It's like, I have to like, this is about me and my journey and what my expectation, like, it's really just your own accountability that I think sometimes we relinquish and we just don't want to deal with because it's a lot and it's difficult. But that's what the difference is between like children and adults and maturity. It's like, how much accountability am I taking for my actions? And now that I have this information, what do I do differently now that I've learned something, now that I've grown? Like, so for me, it was very enlightening to hear how you broke down the importance of leading with love. Especially for women who are doing the work, it can often feel like we are settling. It can feel it's so new to all of us because we didn't have this modeled for us. So for a lot of women, it feels very uncomfortable and we don't know if we should be tough. We don't really know what to do either, and sometimes it can present that we know everything, but we don't.
Be us. Don't turn into us.
But that's what's happening though. It's like we're taking on so much of that masculinity and then wondering why we just keep doing this. So I just thought how you broke it down was really eye-opening even for me. Just kind of looking at it in a way that's like, no, it really is about leading with love and realizing that we're all in this together trying to figure it out and trying to like make this thing work somehow. So I needed to hear that too.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time. I know we have absolutely gone over, so please tell your family thank you for allowing us to just listen to your wisdom and the love of which like you shared that wisdom. Just thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's love.
I want to make sure everybody stays connected. What new projects or anything whatever you want us to follow, push, please let us know so we can make sure that we do so.
Oh yeah, I mean, just keep up with Bereola. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on. It's in all different sectors, in art, in film, and artist, film, literature. I mean, there's a lot of really cool things that I'm doing and working on that I've actually been pretty silent about. But follow me on social media. You'll start to see things unveiling, start to see things blossoming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome. Yeah.
It was. Trigger Happy Fam. Make sure not only are you following him, but that you stay tapped in, because we are bringing more conversations that get to the root of the matter. It is done time just dealing with surfacey things. It's all time for us to not only reveal what is triggering us, but to also work through that healing piece. So until next time, bye everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Triggered AF. Remember, don't be consumed by your triggers. Confront it and then work to release it. Whether you leave us more triggered than you came, or you're feeling like you've been open to a new perspective, our hope is that you've grown. Make sure to share this episode with a friend who's trigger happy and tag us while you're listening. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next week, pull it together, girl.